Hey, can you guys hear me now? Suddenly there's a lot of noise. That's wild. I think I figured it out. I had to push a button. Ah. Hello, my lovelies. This is Paisley Wild, and we are off adventuring into the spaces between. For those of you who can drop a chat room line, can you hear me now, please? Am I there? Is anybody listening? No, I'm kidding. I know you are because I can see you. So, yay, sound. So we have cats, right? We've got Drama, and we've got Merlin, and we've got Yeti, and they don't always get along. So, yes, I think somebody stepped on a button. So, hi, this is Paisley Wild, and we are off adventuring into the spaces between. I'm being broadcast live tonight, of course, on Truth Frequency Radio, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live, and on YouTube. Hi, YouTube. And no matter how you are listening, either stop in and say hi-as in one of the chat rooms, or you can always give me a shout out at wildepaisley@gmail.com, and that's WILDEPAIS, L-E-Y. Don't mind, gmail.com. Oh, yeah. It's, yeah. October's been rough for those of you who have been paying attention. Yeah, it is. It's been an interesting month. So here in my neck of the woods, I've had the COVID, and that was about 2 or 3 weeks worth of insanity and feeling like just horrible. And then the recovery part of COVID has been an adventure because I keep falling asleep. Even now, I've been symptom free for a week and a half, 2 weeks. I don't know. Time's running together this month. And it's just been one thing after another after having the COVID. Had last week was a really bad Friday. A really bad Friday. But it turned out okay. And this past week has been great. My car's back to working. Just busy. And I'm really glad that I don't have to do a 9-to-5 job because, yeah, I would have no brain at all. So, yeah. And then it's Halloween weekend. As most folks in the world celebrate Halloween. Samhain is is the more pagan aspect of it. Or All Saints Day. Some areas celebrate All Hallows Eve. Others celebrate Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead. And there's quite a few different traditions, and I've talked about them in the past, and I probably will again. I wasn't really planning on doing it today just because everybody is. And I just, I don't know, just was going a different direction. Some people don't celebrate anything this weekend, whether it's Halloween or Samhain, either one. And it's not because they don't believe necessarily. It's just that other things happen. Some people in the world, due to religious beliefs, do not celebrate Halloween, which is a sad thing. Let's see. What cookies was I making? I was going to make shortbread cookies because I've got a hankering for shortbread cookies. So I ended up not making cookies. I made cornbread instead. Not quite the same. I didn't get anything much done today besides laundry, just because I keep falling asleep. I do the things I think I need to get done, and then I still fall asleep. So yes, tomorrow I have plans for cookies because I need cookies. Everybody needs cookies. And then Mini-Me wants to trick-or-treat just a bit. She wanted to give out candy, but unfortunately we live outside of town, so kind of hard to do. And so we're not gonna do that. She wants to trick-or-treat with her friends, and I think I'm absolutely on board with that. I'm going to be done and back home by 8 o'clock as far as I'm concerned because it's cold out. Tonight, if you have the chance and you are in the right region, you may be able to see the Northern Lights, the Aurora Borealis. I don't know if you can see the Southern Lights or not. I wasn't really paying attention to that part of the article because I was trying to multitask and my brain's still not there. But yeah, Northern Lights are pretty freaking awesome. I will try to... I will probably do a show on Northern Lights and some of the mythology here this sometime in the next several weeks. Yeah. Thank you, guys. Yeah, cookies. I don't know. We'll probably make sugar skull cookies just because why not? And I'm planning on just doing a dumb tea for myself. Just share a cup of tea with my ancestors, kind of a thing. And yeah, just kind of going on, keep on keeping on. I mean, one day at a time, one foot in front of the other, kind of a thing. There are some crafts and things that I've got planned now that I'm no longer I spent a lot of time either in bed or in the recliner this month. I would wake up long enough to go from one place to the next and then go back to sleep, basically. And yeah, COVID is hard. A friend of mine is still in the hospital. She was having some blood oxygen issues and they couldn't get it stabilized. So she's currently an inpatient and being treated. So I hope, Ange, I hope if you're listening, I hope you're doing okay and getting better. It's, I'm still not pro-vaccine, but that's my own personal opinion. For me, it was not correct, partly because I do have some other health issues that prevent me from getting the vaccine. So I got to have the COVID instead, which is just fan-freaking-tastic, of course. And yeah. So whatever you decide to do, whether it's vaccine or not vaccine, educate yourself. We're not going to get into it too much more. Anytime you go to the doctor or getting any kind of treatment, I sure hope you're doing some research. Don't assume that you have to do the thing. They want to amputate your leg for some reason? Find out why. You got to take an antibiotic? Find out why. Don't just assume. As one of the weird side effects of COVID, I ended up with a skin rash on both my arms. And it's not an allergy, because I take enough allergy stuff anyways because of some of the foods I'm allergic to. That, yeah, yeah, it just, nope, one of those things. And I had to explain to my doctor that's not an allergy. So that hydrocortisone cream that you want me to get a prescription for isn't going to do anything. So yeah, yeah, it's all good. So yeah, just make sure whatever medical choices you're making are educated. Just like I do talk about some natural medicines periodically. What can you find in your backyard that works as medicine? And we'll talk. It's kind of what we're going to talk about tonight, actually. And when there's that stuff that you would think is going to be available isn't, like the spices or seasonings. I mean, it's nothing like making a batch of cookies and you don't have the ingredients. This has happened to me on more than one occasion, and it's frustrating. I've substituted vodka for vanilla, for instance, and it turned out just fine. Those are some really good chocolate chip cookies. But generally, I do try to go through my cupboards and make sure I have what I need before I start baking or doing a recipe or something, because I hate running short on something, especially if I just went to the store and I didn't know I needed the thing. That's vexing. Or make sure I take a pound of butter out of the freezer so it's nice and, not frozen when I go to cream it into some sugar to make cookies. Yeah, that happens. So yeah, just making sure I've got the things to do what I need to do. And same thing with spells and rituals, making sure you have the right ingredients, the right correspondences to do whatever it is you need to do. Now, once upon a time, life was not quite as it is today. And what I mean by that is you couldn't just go to the grocery store and buy $1 thing of spices or whatever from the dollar store, Walmart, grocery store, tea shop, whatever. It was harder to get a lot of the spices and seasonings that we take for granted today. If you lived inland, often it was hard to get salt. If some places you couldn't get pepper, some you couldn't get ginger, some you couldn't, some things just don't grow in places. Vanilla was a luxury item. And so in, say, medieval times, when we talk about a lot of the witchcraft type stuff, and there's a lot of traditions were developed in the early medieval periods as we were, crossing from the BCs to the 80s, AD, after death, or Common Era, however you want to put it. A lot of things were grown in their own garden, like mint, for instance. A whole variety of mints are available, but some of those spices just were not available. And that's why the spice merchants were extraordinarily rich. It's because they had invested the money to transport the spices from the warmer climates where they were grown to the cooler climates. And a lot of those really exotic spices were just not available, and we take them for granted. Saffron, for instance. Saffron is one of those kind of exotic things. It was used as a dye. It was used to flavor food. It's got an exotic flavor. Even today, it's bloody expensive, mostly because it takes a lot of saffron to a lot of plants to produce the herb or the spice. So when it comes to flavoring things, you had to be aware. So that's why a lot of herbs and herbology or herb knowledge became very common. And the herbalists knew what flavors went with what. And, the kitchen staff was often very, very educated and knew what was going on. So, and where to get the stuff. But not everybody had access, to a lot of those spices. So when you're doing a spell, and you need different ingredients, what did you use? What did you substitute? Well, honestly, we have a lot more variation today than they had then, just because of that. And so we'll kind of go over some of those ingredients. Let's see. I want to make sure I've got this. And same with tools. Did medieval witches or pre-medieval period witches use a different knife for their athame in their day-to-day life? No, it's probably their belt knife, the same one they ate with. Part of the reason why they made sure it was clean all the time. And it was important to make sure that they had an athame to do whatever ritual work. But unless they were of an upper class, odds are good they used the same things in their ritual work that they used every day in their lives, in their kitchen. And because of that, it was simpler. They didn't have to have a whole closet or room or what have you. And it was pretty direct. Now, we are a little different today, without a doubt. And instead of worrying about all of that, we have, we can get just about any tool. You can go down to the dollar store and get a knife. You can get a wand. Is it from China? Is it plastic? Probably that wand is. But you know what? It's still there. Oh, my star's tighten. So, coriander, I think. Let's start with coriander. Coriander. We've talked about coriander before. And coriander, generally speaking, has been used a lot with pork dishes. I don't know if you guys knew that. It's actually really, really good for pork. And it just gives it a nice flavor. But it's also called Chinese parsley, I think, if I remember right. It's parsley. And so if you ever notice that parsley, when you're looking at the plants, that the leaves look a lot like a carrot, it's because it's in the same family. And it's got kind of feathery foliage, feathery, I can't talk, leaves. So yeah, it's cool. It's a culinary herb. You can put it in a lot of dishes. I actually use it a lot in cooking. For me, this is almost, I really do put it in a lot of the food. Because for me, parsley is very protective. It's one of the associations. It is a very protection or strengthening type of plant, or vitality. And so yeah, it ends up being in a lot of my soups, for instance. So parsley is the herb, and then when it goes to seed, coriander becomes the seed. And coriander has when it's ground up, it works really good in, like I mentioned, pork dishes. Let's see. So when it comes to coriander specifically, is good in matters relating to love. So if you're trying to do self-love spell, and maybe you don't have rose hips, or rose petals, I should say, use coriander. Very, very similar properties. And you can actually burn it as incense, which, okay, I did not know that. You can it's often used as greenery in hand fastings, which I think is pretty freaking awesome. And coriander also medicinally is good for anti-inflammatory purposes, like swelling from arthritis and such. And it's a good immune system booster. And, when we talk about a lot of these natural remedies, the different herbs and such, it's interesting to me the number of them that are truly enhancing or truly encouraging or for strengthening your immune system to help protect you. Because if you have a healthier immune system, you're less likely to get sick. And if you're less likely to get sick, you're going to be less likely to feel crappy around other people, less likely to get angry and frustrated and all that. So, yeah, it's, taking better care of ourselves. And that's a really important thing. And we need to do more of it. Let's see. So Wanda wants to know what tarragon is used for. Yeah, if I could spell. So tarragon is popular in French cooking, just so you guys know. It comes, the name is French for little dragon, because it's a very strong plant and often takes over your garden. And it's got a slight anise flavor, so very, very subtle. And it's good with fish, chicken, eggs, veal, rabbit, turkey, dressings and such. It's also called dragon's mugwort, just so you guys know. It corresponds with fire, and chakras. It works with your root, your sacral chakra, and your heart chakra. And if you put it in a charm, it helps to give you courage to remove yourself and loved ones from an abusive situation. It can help you to discover your most healthy and true self. And TFR is going to break, so we're going to go to break real quick. And when we come back, I'll pick up tarragon some more.
Even if you're not a great reader, don't worry about it. I read it for you. Use the Amazon app today and buy the Birth Trilogy, spelled Beardh, or search for my name. I'm Brooks Agnew.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
No hate, no hype, no fear. Real people, real radio.
Isis, Astarte, Diana, Hecate, Demeter, Kali, Inanna. Isis, Astarte, Diana, Hecate, Demeter, Kali, Inanna. Isis, Astarte, Diana, Hecate, Demeter, Kali, Inanna.
Hello, my lovelies. This is Paisley Wild, and we are off adventuring into the spaces between. Talking about cooking and such. Yeah. And spices and substitutions and all the stuff. So, just before break, we started talking about tarragon. Tarragon is a lucky herb. If you keep a sprig of it dried and in your wallet, it helps to bring good luck to you. October apparently needs a lot of tarragon this year. If you use tarragon in cooking, especially with like chicken or in your béarnaise sauce or something like that, it can help you to find love in your own life. If you're going to be doing spell work or rituals to help care for others, you can use a little bit of tarragon because it'll help send that energy to others, but without exhausting yourself. Let's see. Yeah, you can burn it. So if you have a petition or a goal or something, you write it on a piece of paper and you're burning some tarragon as incense. You know, you burn it in there. It helps to with your personal goals. And now, remember, I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV. I've not stayed at a Holiday Inn Express in any, recently. So just pay attention. Do your research. Talk to your doctor, whatever it is you got to do. But medicinally, tarragon has been known to help with indigestion, sleep problems, toothache pain, water retention, nausea, vomiting, that kind of thing, menstrual issues, low appetite. Now, if you are pregnant or breastfeeding, you're not supposed to have more than just whatever's subtly seasoning your food. So it's not something that you should just take because it may not be good for you. If you're allergic to ragweed, tarragon is not going to be your friend. And tarragon can also slow blood clotting. So if you're going to have a medical procedure or if you have a blood disorder that impacts your blood clotting, pay attention. So this is where educating yourself is such a really, really good thing when it comes to the food that we eat and knowing what's really in it. I mean, if you look at the ingredients on something, it's like, spices. What does that mean? Does that mean salt and pepper? Or does that mean, you got herbes de provenance in there too? So the food you eat does have an impact on the medications you take and the life you lead. So if you're allergic to ragweed, but you love tarragon in your food and you're wondering why you have an allergic reaction all the time or seem to be really, really sensitive to ragweed, well, maybe you've just had a little too much tarragon in your world. You need to you need to pay attention and you need to look. And that's why when you're talking with your doctor, for instance, at one of an annual exam or checkup or something, and they're like, hey, is there anything else you want to talk about? It's like, well, before we try this new medication because my blood pressure's up, this is what I've been eating a lot of, or this is, what can I do differently with this, type of herbal supplement, or, what is it I can do? And that open conversation is really good. And if your doctor is not willing to acknowledge that, that's frustrating, and I get it because I've been there already. It may be good to make sure you're communicating with your pharmacist, because your pharmacist should know these things also. If your pharmacist or your doctor blows you off when you're saying, hey, well, I've been eating a lot of, cumin. How is that affecting my medication? Well, everybody says salt, too much salt increases your blood pressure. Well, salt's not the only spice out there. Maybe it's time to get a new doctor. So don't be afraid to fire the people you pay to provide you the health care you need if they're not actually giving you the health care that you need. And that's a really big deal. Make sure you are getting the care you need to be the healthiest you that you can possibly be. And if there's noisy cats in the background, I do apologize. They're being obnoxious. Just obnoxious. Let's see. Trying to find... What's another one? And the cats argue enough that the dog has to bark. Because, yeah. Yeah, so when it comes to substitutions, though, you do need to double check. What other things can you substitute for? Wikipedia.com actually has a pretty good correspondence table and some really good information there that you can trade out for, or things that might be similarly replaced. Yes, the fluffy cat wants me to go to bed, and he's going to have to wait. That's just all there is to it. So trying to find. So if, for instance, something calls for mistletoe, and you don't have mistletoe because some places it just doesn't grow, you can substitute mint or sage, which I think is awesome. Whoops. Silly cat. Don't mind him. If he's growling or talking, just ignore him. Also, some things are toxic. So mistletoe, for instance, can be very toxic. If you've got children or pets that you are worried about, eating something they shouldn't eat, mistletoe is probably not something you want in your house. Because yes, it can be very, very toxic. And which is really frustrating because it is a magical plant. It's considered a very lucky plant. Part of the reason why if two people kiss beneath it, or specifically lovers kiss beneath it, people, the assumption is they will have lasting happiness. If you can carry a sprig upon yourself or in your wallet, you'll have good luck and protection. If you have it hanging in your home, it's to protect you from disease, lightning, and werewolves. And also having your children swapped out for changelings. Let's see. In Scandinavia, hey Lewis, happy Samhain. In Scandinavia, mistletoe was a symbol of peace. And so if two groups of people were at war and they wanted to have a truce, they would swear it underneath the mistletoe. Druidic folklore. Mistletoe was gathered only when a vision was told or was given that there was time to gather it, and then it was very, very ceremonial when they gathered it. Mistletoe is a really big deal in the Druidic world. So mistletoe, the name mistletoe, is also when translated is actually dung on twig, because the seeds are spread generally through bird droppings. So bird dung. And then there was some beliefs, though, that instead of being spread by bird poop, it was actually spread by lightning. Not, but yes. Let's see. So with the mistletoe tradition, in around Yule and Christmas and such, so it started around Saturnalia with the Roman festival. So you kiss under the mistletoe on Christmas, and then the man must pick a berry when the kissing is complete, and then berries were gone. There was no more kissing. And then the mistletoe must be burned on the 12th night to ensure that those who kissed under it would actually marry. The Middle Ages, the church actually banned mistletoe because it was, considered a fertility thing and encouraged debauchery. And even as late as the 20th century, some churches did not allow people to wear mistletoe, like a sprig of mistletoe, to their services or have it part of their decor. So, yeah. And it's interesting to me the things that get labeled and have just a stigma attached. So, yeah. Mistletoe is also associated with midsummer festivals, not just Yule, and is used to attract love, for protection, or luck while hunting. Also for forgiveness and reconciliation. And if it's burned, it has been said to get rid of unwanted spirits. And if it's laid across the threshold of a bedroom, it'll help to banish unpleasant dreams. And so, yeah, it's one of those things that you might want to put in a protective amulet. And then when it comes to medicinal use, like I mentioned, mistletoe is toxic. Now, a lot of the toxins that exist out in our world in microscopic doses are not so bad for us. Have a good day, Aussie. So, yes, mistletoe is toxic, but in microscopic doses, it can be used to lower blood pressure. It's very good for the heart and the circulatory system. It's also been used to treat epilepsy. It's been used as a compress for rheumatism, and it's currently being studied for treatment of certain cancers, and that's the European mistletoe. And then American mistletoe has been used to help with childbirth, to help the contractions get started. And yes, a lot of it is toxic, especially children and small pets. And the mistletoe berries should never be eaten. And if you're pregnant or nursing, stay away from the mistletoe. Don't touch it. So yeah, it's just a really, really interesting plant. If you don't have it, you can substitute mint, which I think is important because if I have 3 obnoxious cats, the one that's about to come over here and get in my face his name's Yeti. He's a fluff and kind of an idiot. He would eat the mistletoe. That's just all there is to it. He would eat it because he's an idiot. He also tries to eat Velcro, so, it's, yeah. So mint would be so much better. There's peppermint and spearmint, water mint, chocolate mint, cat mint, which is also known as catnip. And it's really good for migraines, by the way. And tummy issues and such. So in a way, the medicinal side of mint is almost the opposite of mistletoe. But it has some of the similar properties. They're both warm, if you will, herbs. They're both good for banishing. They're good in your amulets. They're good to have. And so, yeah, just knowing what's available and what's out there. I mean, you can go to the grocery store almost any time and get some mint tea. Mistletoe tea is a little harder to source. So when it comes to that kind of thing, what is it you need to switch? What is it you need to trade out? So patchouli is another one. So patchouli is a very strong herb. Very, very strong. And it seems to be one of those that is a love it or hate it kind of smell. I personally have problems with patchouli. If it's not really, really pure, it gives me the worst headaches. Oh, my stars. And it's just not good. Just not good. It makes me ill. And that doesn't do me any good if I'm having problems with patchouli. So I would trade it out for one of those substitution things, which would be oak moss. Yes, I would much rather have oak moss than patchouli. Let's see. And so oak moss, which is often used in healing. Let's see. Oh, hold on. Where did it go? Ow. And associated with earth, of course. I really would rather have oak moss than patchouli in my world. Just because, yeah, patchouli makes me ill. So knowing what you can and cannot have is important. So say, for instance, it's one that people are allergic to a lot. Lavender. Lavender's a good one. Some people are really, really allergic to lavender, have problems with it, which I get because lavender is one of those strong smells, and it seems to be kind of a love it or hate it kind of a smell. And lavender is technically in the mint family, if you didn't know that. It's very much an aromatic. It's good for aromatherapy, fertility, love, purification. I use sachets in my drawers because I just like the smell, and that's really awesome. But if lavender is not your thing, because some people are very, very allergic to lavender, well, the substitution is actually rose, R-O-S-E, rose. So if you can't have lavender, I sure hope you can have rose. Rose is good for happiness and love, luck, secrets, victory, honor. And, there's quite a few different types of roses out there, different colors. So if you're trying to do a spell or ritual with certain colors, for instance, rose might be better for you. Say it's a hand fasting, and the bride does not like the color purple, and she wants everything to be in yellow. Well, there's yellow roses, so you can find yellow roses, and that'll absolutely positively replace the lavender. So, it's just a matter of trying to figure out what is a good alternative. If you don't have lemon peel because you don't have citruses in your world, maybe lemongrass is going to work, or lemon verbena. Both grow here. I live in North Idaho, and I can grow both of those. Let's see. Grains of Paradise is one that's common also. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Can't spell apparently. So Grains of Paradise, also known as cardamom. If that's not your thing, or if you don't have it, well, you can replace it with black pepper. Now, if you're making your own chai tea, there's black pepper in it anyway, so just be aware. But it's part of the ginger family, so maybe you need a little bit of ginger might be better than trying to add more black pepper to your chai tea. I mean, chai tea itself is quite the magical recipe. So as I mentioned in the first half hour, there are a lot of plants that just weren't out there available, a lot of spices that weren't out there. Pepper was there, salt generally, cinnamon, and some other savories, but generally speaking, it was herbs, and those, because the average person just could not afford frankincense. Frankincense is really, really, really expensive. Even now, is not exactly cheap. It just isn't. So what would you use instead? And having your journal where you're writing down, like, hey, well, this is what I need for this particular ritual. I have all of these things. I don't have this. That's an opportunity for you to educate yourself and figure out what it is that you could use instead. And any time you come across a situation like that where there is something that just you wish you had it because you could use it, but you don't, it's like, all right, so now what do I do? You figure it out. And you do your research and you write it down so that in the future, you know that, these other correspondences will work. Hellebore is another one of those. It's native to Europe. If you're not in Europe, what else are you going to use? It's also known as the Christmas rose, or Lenten rose. And it's good for banishing. So if you're doing a banishing water, hellebore would be something to put in there. And you just don't have access to it, what can you use instead? Well, you can use nettles or tobacco. Tobacco is actually almost a universal substitute when it comes to ritual stuff. Hemlock, henbane, oh gosh, hold on, let me see if I can pull up the list here. Tobacco is really good for substitution when it comes to a lot of those different things that you just don't have access to. Yew wood is good. Bay laurel. Let's see, hold on. And it's also just a really good offering. I like to have a good pipe tobacco if I'm going to give an offering. If you don't have it, you only have what you can afford. I get it. When I lived in northern Minnesota, and I was riding around with my Ojibwe friends, well, if we saw an eagle, down the window would roll. They'd open up the pack of smokes they kept in the glove box, even if they didn't smoke, to give the offering of a cigarette to the eagle. Which even now, there are days when I would have to give out a whole carton because here in North Idaho we have a lot of bald eagles will winter here, and you see a lot of them. There'd be a lot of them. You figure out something else. It's just a matter of trying to figure out what it is. What's a good substitute. So and you do need to make sure, if you're doing the research, that kind of thing. What is it? Hey, have a good night, Titan. And happy Halloween. What is it you're going to replace it with? And make sure you've got the correspondences as close as possible. And the replacement herb or seasoning, spice, whatever, know what those substitutions are, because maybe down the road you'll need to do a different type of spell or ritual. And that substitution is actually the better thing to do. Let's see. So tobacco can be replaced pretty much any toxic herb or plant when it comes to spell work. Black tea, just good old-fashioned black tea, can replace any of your tea ingredients. Roses are generally pretty good for any flower. White candles can stand in for a candle of just about any candle. Quartz, white quartz, regular quartz, can stand in for pretty much any other rock. Olive oil is generally a pretty good substitution for almost any other oil or carrier oil when it comes to ritual work. Frankincense is a good substitute for any other gum rosin for incense purposes. Lemon is an excellent substitute for any of your citruses. And apple is a very good substitute for any of your fruits. Now, there are some specific things that you might want to be looking for. And if that's the case, and you look up, say, I don't know, trying to figure out something, maybe you need trefoil and you don't have it. Well, and you want to substitute something else. Make sure you've got the alignments as close as together, the associations. Is it good for knowledge, good for lightning, like hazel? Or is it going to be more like heliotrope, where it's going to inspire some prophetic dreams? So which one is it going to be? You want to make sure you're using the right plant or the right substitution to achieve the right goals. If you're wanting someone to have really good, really good dreams and get a lot of rest, heliotrope is not the right one for you. It just isn't. Let's see. I will have the links for the show notes, of course, because I do that, and I think it's important. That way you guys have access to different things also if you come in and are doing some research. And I love it when you guys ask questions. I finally see Titan. Titan's in the chat. Titan had to leave. And no questions from Titan. I just don't know what to do. I'm kidding. Only sort of. Let's see. And yeah, when it comes to cooking, I substitute when I need to. That's how I came up with my own gluten-free flour blend. And it's because I'm cheap. Actually, not cheap necessarily, but it's like, really? Why do I have to pay for that? Oh, very cool. Justin says he has 5 bald eagles nesting in a tree in front of the house. His chickens do not like them. No, they don't. They don't like ravens either. I've got a pair of ravens that like to circle periodically. And I have 2 silly chickens left, Lucky and Hen Solo. And they need to go to their winter coop, and it'll be quiet to not have the chickens, but the neighbors have a goose. So it's only going to be a little quiet. We are just about to top of the hour. When we come back, we'll do the singing bowl. And I don't know. We'll figure it out. I'll see you guys in a few.
Source for news and information without the hate, hype, and fear. We're proud to feature cutting-edge programs like Beyond the Veil with Chris and Cherie Geo, X Squared with Brooks Agnew, Paranormal Portal with Brent Thomas, Sheridanism Raw with Karen and Missa, Fearless with Frank Castle, Strange World with Mark Sargent, The Eye of Ra with Ra Castaldo, The Infinite Fringe with Billy Ray, Ironworks with Josh Corey, The Kev Baker Show, and dozens more. Did you know you can listen from any telephone by dialing 641-793-7117 or call into your favorite show toll free at 833-TFR Live. Uncensored talk and news you won't hear in the mainstream media. Truth Frequency Radio, your protection from deception.
With the wrong people and got himself involved in some serious shit. With all economic factors indicating the U.S. is heading for a prolonged recession, some experts are suggesting that the government should stop dumping all of our money into an enormous hole. Is it time to close the national money hole?
That kind of talk is alarmist and irresponsible.
America needs the money hole.
Right. Driving truckloads of money out into the New Mexico desert and dumping it into a massive pit is one of America's greatest traditions.
It's a national treasure.
Now, look, no reasonable person is advocating that we are going to stop destroying money. But the American people earn that money. They have the right to decide how it should be destroyed.
Well, so you are in favor of personal money holes?
Yes, people should be able to dump money into a hole in their backyard and flush it down the toilet. Let the free market decide the most efficient way of destroying
My
money.
father worked 2 jobs so he'd have money to put in the money hole. And he never complained.
You can't depend on private money holes to destroy that money.
Duncan's right. I mean, some of this money could blow away. Yes. Some of it may not be correctly buried. I mean, there's too many variables.
That's why the government puts gasoline into the money hole and lights it on fire to make sure all the money is destroyed.
I love the money fire.
It's just like they say, you have to throw money in a hole and set it on fire to make money.
Okay, but find the cheapest way to destroy that money, like shredding it up and feeding it to holes.
Tell that to the
Adding
digger who's
jobs
worked in graveyard shift for 20 years. Digging the hole is all he knows.
The sheer number of shovelers that it takes to maintain
But
that
if
hole.
we're talking about closing holes, I mean, what about the soldier hole? How about the energy hole? I mean, I can't believe that closing the money hole is even on the table.
off adventuring into these spaces between. Hi guys, how's it going? So, I think we need some singing bowl. Maybe a lot of it. It's just been, as much as I love October and the fall and everything, I'm really excited to see November start. So yeah. So, after my crazy Friday last weekend, I went through and I did some cleaning and I cleansed with some Palo Santo and some frankincense and some sage. I got all three. And it is interesting to me how much lighter I've felt this week after. So whenever you're feeling just kind of stuck, remember sometimes we have to cleanse ourselves, not just of the dirt in the shower because sometimes your stuff kind of gets stuck to us. So, just to catch you up for those of you joining, first 3 weeks of October was COVID. It was a wild time with COVID, and recovery has been slow and exhausting. Stamina has been a little rough, and then the cluster F-bombs of Friday last weekend. Car problems, missing the bus, just one of those days, if it could go wrong, it did. A friend of mine fell down and dislocated her hip. So that was an adventure, and just, it's like, seriously? So yeah, it was, October's been rough, and it's my favorite month of the year. I love the colors, I love the smells, I love the sounds, I love everything about October, except for this year. This year I'm ready for October to kind of move into the past, and no more October happens in November, right? So yeah. First part of the hour we talked about substitutions, and mostly do your research. If you don't have something and you want to do a spell, ritual, or recipe, either one, research it. What else is out there that has a similar ability to replace the thing that you're missing? Whether it's not having any vanilla, which has happened to me. It's nothing quite like chocolate chip cookies with no vanilla, but a little extra vodka kind of does the trick. My gluten-free flour blend that I use, I make sure I put cream of tartar in it, for instance, because cream of tartar is a stabilizer. And it's one of those things that if you put in your cake, it keeps it from falling. Generally, not always, but generally. And so what is it that you can do to kind of fix or replace the thing that you don't have? Because I'm on a gluten-free adventure, and I still like the occasional biscuit or cookie, and it's kind of hard to do if you don't have all the stuff. So, and yes, turkey time. I actually like turkey. Nummy turkey. We've got all sorts of wild turkeys. They go gobble, gobble, gobble. So, do your research. What is it that you have that could substitute for something you don't have? It's kind of like wearing, can't find your slippers, so, put on an extra pair of socks. You just, there are other things out there. In one of my punchy moments, I was trying to read, and sadly, when I'm sick, reading doesn't work. The brain just kind of disengages and slides into neutral. So I don't know how I got there. But so Thought Catalog had an article from 2018 about the different types of witches. Excuse me. And sorry, guys. And so it's like, you know what? That's kind of funny. Not necessarily funny, haha, but funny, interesting. And I thought maybe I'd go over it. And yeah. So I wanted to talk about it. So, 16 different types of witches. Link will be in the show notes. First one is the traditional witch. So, according to this particular article, I'll probably just read each type and have a commentary as we go. And so traditional witches are witches who have a basis in the history of witchcraft and the old craft that came before Wicca. They take a historical or traditional approach to their practice and often will study their ancestors or other folklore attached to witchcraft. Traditional witches want to honor the old ways of practicing their craft. Oh, excuse me. And will often focus on working with the local history and the spirits of where they are or where they've come from. While these witches hold history and customs in high regard, there are absolutely contemporary traditional witches practicing today. So these are kind of the basic building block of a witch is the traditional witch, if you will. Which is pretty interesting. Oh, that's very cool, Dee. So, Wanda and Dee, gluten-free and stuff. I've heard that sometimes if you are eating wheat from, say, Europe, or non-U.S. territories and states, that sometimes the gluten issue goes away. I'm not sure. I do think it's interesting. I don't know if it's interesting enough to, buy gluten from or wheat from, Russia, but I do think it's interesting. The gluten thing, gluten seems to give me headaches and not necessarily an allergy, but life is hard enough without walking through it with a headache all the time. So, and I love to cook, so learning how to be gluten-free has been an adventure. Absolutely 100% an adventure. All right, so number 2 on the list is the Gardnerian Witch. So Gardnerian witches, or Gardnerian Wicca specifically, is a practice of Wicca that came about in the 50s because of Gerald Gardner. So he's considered to be the father of Wicca, and those who practice Gardnerian Wicca have strong ties to nature, challenge societal norms, and have many rituals that are the foundation of their practice. In order to be a Gardnerian witch, you must be initiated. Members cannot initiate themselves. There is also an incredibly structured system of advancing as a witch, and with your practice as you grow and learn more about your craft. So Gardnerian witches are generally part of a coven. If it's a solo practitioner, then odds are pretty good. You started out in a coven and have stepped away, but you don't advance from, whatever level you were when you were in the coven. So it's very, very structured. And generally speaking, the Gardnerian Witch covens, they're not quite a carbon copy of each other, but there's not a lot of variety. So it's kind of like walking into a Lutheran church in Montana and walking into a Lutheran church in Florida. Probably going to be pretty similar. There will be some things that are different, but it'll be pretty similar. All right, third on the list is the Alexandrian Witch. So Alexandrian Witchcraft, or Wicca, was founded in the 60s by Alex and Maxine Sanders. Alexandria Wicca is a British derivative of Wicca and witchcraft. Alexandrian Wicca has some similarities to Gardnerian Wicca, but also pulls elements of ceremonial magic and the Kabbalah as well. Alexandrian Wicca is seen as more eclectic and is less structured than Gardnerian, and they tend to follow the belief of, well, if it works, use it. Witches must still be initiated in order to practice, and there are degrees and levels of advancement that can be achieved as a witch moves along in their practice. Covens might meet on new moons, full moons, and during other Sabbath festivals. So it's, again, generally speaking, when people are saying, hey, I am Wicca, they're either Gardnerian or Alexandrian, and just, that's it. The Karelian Witch. So the Karelian nativist tradition, or Karelian Wicca, was founded in the 20th century by Karelian High Corral. She claimed to come from a line of hereditary witches and was a psychic, spiritual healer, and herbalist. Heavily influenced by her lineage and Hereditary witchcraft, she was head of the church until her death in the 40s. Karelian Wicca was not recognized as Wicca until the 90s and was seen as more eclecticism and universalism. Karelian Wicca is one of the most widespread practices still in existence today. So kind of a light Wicca, if you will. Again, quite a few folks out there are Wicca, and they fall into one of these categories. And yeah, I'm not Wicca. You can be a witch without being Wicca. Just saying. Or Wicca without being a witch. That's why we're talking about it. Number 5 on my list is a sea witch. So a sea witch has strong ties to the water and the ocean and uses that element often in her practice. Sea and ocean magic will often use sand, shells, driftwood, or other elements that come from that place. Sea witches feel connected to the water and ancient folklore involving sirens or etc. Yes, I know a couple folks that fall into this category. And they use a lot of ocean type stuff in their practice. See, number 6 is a kitchen witch, also known sometimes as a hearth witch or a home witch. Kitchen witches create most of their magic in the home or in the kitchen. They're often very home-based, often incredibly nurturing, and love to make their home a truly special and sacred place. Kitchen witches love to cook and brew and use herbs, sometimes gathered from their own garden. When practicing, they combine their own personal and individual magical energy with essential oils, herbs, food, and everyday objects to create their spells, rituals, and magic. I think a little bit of kitchen witchery is found in almost any witchcraft tradition, in my opinion. Because as you go through your path and you're learning more about witchcraft and you're doing the rituals and the spells and the whatnots, it just becomes normal to incorporate some of that into your food preparation as well. And not because you're being intentionally, ooh, I'm going to be a kitchen witch today, but because, like, hey, I know that lavender, it can be soothing when my skin's irritated, so I'm going to have it I'm going to put some in my lotion that I keep in the kitchen after I do my dishes so that my hands don't crack. Even though you're not necessarily doing it in a witchy kind of way, it is kind of in a witchy way because you know those things. Or chamomile can be very, very soothing. Well, you know what? I'm stressed out, so I'm going to start, drinking more chamomile tea because I don't want to be stressed out. And you learn those associations and you recognize them more. And since you're recognizing them, you tend to use them more. That's all. Number 7 is the Hedge Witch. So the Hedge Witches practice what is known as hedge jumping, which is venturing out of this world and into the other world. Hedge witches can communicate with the spiritual world and can send messages between both worlds. Hedge witches practice astral projection as well as work with herbs and earth-based magic. But what makes them specifically a hedge witch is their ability to cross the hedge, also known as the boundary between this world and the spirit world. It's thought that the flying on a broomstick legend was a misunderstanding based on witches flying into the spiritual realm. Yeah, okay. But no, seriously. Yeah, hedge witches used to be found often in the borders or the hedge surrounding the town. So even before walls were a big deal around communities, there's often some sort of protective hedge. Hedges have been used to delineate property lines, fence rows, that kind of thing. And so they're also known as that space between, if you will, they're the in-between. And so if a hedge witch is living in that area, that space in between, it means that often they're able to access both the spiritual world and the physical world, and they just have that additional knowledge. Also, hedge witches used to just hang out there because they were ostracized in society, and so they found it more comforting to be a little bit more solo and alone, or isolated sometimes, out in the hedge and away from the community. So people had to trek to get to them to, get their potion for whatever it is they needed to do. And a lot of the plants and stuff that they wanted to raise, the herbal plants and herbal healing and such, they needed that a more rural area to grow them, because they didn't need all the people getting into their stuff, and it was able to protect them a little bit more. So the hedge witch, I think, has a lot in common with the kitchen witch. Often hedge witch and kitchen witch are interchangeable. Not always, but I think, and today a lot of witches incorporate many different aspects of all these different things, but yeah, it's, I don't know, it just is. That's all. Don't mind me. So number 8 is the Dianic Witch. Dianic witches practice the most feminist of all witchcraft practices. Followers of the cult of Diana are all women, so no men allowed. Dianic witches worship the goddess through all 3 of her aspects, the maiden, mother, and crone. Rituals and worship can vary, but all have feminist aspects and come from a feminist standpoint. So if Christianity is considered true patriarchy, Dianic witchcraft is true matriarchy, and they're about as polar opposite as you can get. And it is not my thing, because I feel I need that balance of both the masculine and feminine, but some people don't. They don't feel called to follow the masculine deities or the masculine gods, and they feel called to work more with the feminine aspect. Within Wicca specifically, is often called the masculine and feminine, the lord and the lady, if you will. Dianic witchcraft is specifically just the lady, and the feminine aspect, the maiden, mother, and crone. And it's all similar, yes, but those rituals and worship plans are very different, and it is more of a worship than an honoring. So I don't worship the deities, I honor them. A little bit of a difference, a different approach. And I do know a couple of Dianic witches. They're well-balanced people. It's just they feel called to follow only the feminine. And yeah, they do tend to be a little bit more feminist. Now, some of the contemporary Dianic witch covens do allow transgender individuals, or they've embraced the LGBTQ community more, which is good. I don't know how that all works, so you would have to talk to them yourself to figure it out. Often if you just Google Dianic Witch Coven, if they have a website or social media presence, something should come up. But again, it's a matter of doing your research. If you're looking and you're not finding something, please let me know. wildepaisley@gmail.com. That's wildepaisley@gmail.com. I do have some connections to the pagan community out in the world, not just here locally. So if you're looking for a coven closer to where you are, I may be able to help. So just let me know. If you are looking for a coven or a group or community, there's quite a few to be found online. A lot of folks are doing a lot more of the Zoom conferences and that type of thing for rituals instead of doing them face-to-face, which has changed the need for everybody to be local. Online rituals are a little different. I've participated in a couple. They're similar, I suppose, to being face-to-face or physically present, but there are some differences, of course. I personally like the face-to-face more, just because I tend to be more of a people person, but I understand why the Zoom conference or the online meeting place is becoming more and more used. It's just our world is different today than it was 10 years ago, even last year. And just making sure that you are able to connect, I totally get it. So yeah, whatever it is that you need to feel connected to your path, that's what you should do. If you need help, let me know. One of the books I'm working on is a companion to a class, a spirituality class. So we shall see when that is available. October was supposed to be so much more productive. I feel like I've been absent. I don't even know where October went. As far as I'm concerned, it should still be September. I don't know why it's so cold and there's snow on the mountain. It's been, yeah. This month has just kind of disappeared, and I don't know where it went. It's frustrating. So very frustrating. All right. So next on my list is the Elemental Witch. So elemental witches study and practice based upon the elements: earth, air, wind, and fire, and spirit. An elemental magic is work based on and honoring each element. An elemental witch may have an altar for each element, or they may have all elements on one altar. Elemental witches call on the elements when casting spells and performing rituals, and may even have one that they personally identify with and work towards finding. Now, I actually know some elemental witches, and I get it. I understand their point of view because some things just call to you more. I tend to work with earth and air more than anything else. Although water tends to talk to me too. So it just depends on what I'm trying to accomplish. I see the elements as tools or building blocks, not a specific path. But other people, they don't feel called to work with a deity. Instead, they feel called to work with an element. And that is entirely up to you and your own specific path. A lot of elemental witches do tend to be more of the solo practitioner. Just because it's harder to find a coven that will accept you as just an elemental witch. Because a lot of traditions out there really feel, oh, well, which deity are you working with? It's like, I don't work with a deity, I work with an element. And they're like, no, you got to work with a deity. Maybe you should do a spirit quest. Well, no, I don't want to. I'm happy working with it. There's a whole conversation out there you got to have. That's why if you are joining a coven or looking to join a coven, make sure you're asking the questions and find out their structure and what they believe in, and make sure that they're going to be a good match for you. It's kind of like making sure that the club is exactly what you need to be in, or interviewing for a job. Make sure it's going to work. Or if you're moving into a new residential area and it has a homeowners association, sure hope you're understanding what the rules and restrictions are, because if they say no dogs and you have 5, it's not going to be a good fit. So just pay attention. And just because you start out as one type of witch doesn't mean that's what you're going to be the entire rest of your life. You may start as an elemental witch, but as you learn your path and learn your spirituality and stuff, you may feel called to do something else a little different, or feel called to a deity, or more ceremonial, or any of those different things. And that's okay. I hope you're journaling your adventure, because it'll help you. But it's really important to journal it, so you can look back and say, oh, that's why that happened. Oh, I totally get it. That's happened to me. As I've worked with Hecate first, and it was only after having one of those duh moments I realized I needed to be working with Caninos too. And it was looking back at my journal, my notes, my stuff about my dreams, and it's like, oh, that's what that meant. Those aha moments, they're out there. They happen all the time. It's just sometimes you have to go back through and look through your journal to realize that's what it was. And then you connect the dots. And yeah. Just like even though COVID was not really something on my to-do list, and October has been kind of insane, total deja vu moment. Last Saturday, I was talking to a group of friends, and it's like, wow, I have told you guys all this before. This is total deja vu. It is very bizarre. To me, that means I was exactly where I needed to be when I should be there. So even though COVID sucked, I was supposed to have it, apparently. Go figure. Let's see. Oh, bottom of the hour. When we come back, we're going to keep talking about the different types of witch. And, yeah, we'll see you in a few. Hello, my lovelies. This is Paisley Wild, and we're off adventuring into the spaces between. Hope you guys are just having a fantastic weekend. Happy Samhain, or Halloween, or Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos, All Saints Eve. However it is you practice. I hope you guys have a good weekend, a safe weekend. Here locally, It is cold and chilly. I think the low tonight is 29, which is chilly enough for crying out loud, but clear. When the show's over, I'm going to go take a gander outside, see if I can see the northern lights. That'd be cool, because apparently there's been enough solar activity that, northern lights should be visible in the night sky tonight. It's crazy. It's the last show for October. I think I've only done like 4 shows this month. I don't know. I would have to look back at my notes now that I'm thinking about it. Because I missed a couple weeks because I was sick. I mean, actively sick. And then I think I missed one because I was getting it. And I just felt icky. And then I had a migraine last night. Sorry, guys. Sadly, those have not stopped. But we had a big weather change that doesn't help. And it's just, I don't know, October's been a weird month. And the Nina the Veil. So be careful what you wish for this weekend. You never know what you might get. Don't be afraid to cleanse your house afterwards. I'll probably be doing that again. I'll probably be doing it on a regular basis. Well, I did it on a regular basis anyways, but I'll probably be a little bit more proactive and in-depth. Because, it's been... October's been rough. And kind of shows me that I wasn't doing enough. So, and that, honestly, is probably the best lesson I've had for October. As even though I'm generally mentally prepared and okay and I can roll with it and such, you can never be too ready, too prepared. So, that being said, here in the Northern Hemisphere, we're moving into winter. Where I'm at, that means snow and ice and fog and storms, winter storms. So that means I need to make sure that I'm ready in case the power goes out. The power company came out and replaced a power line, so unless something really bad happens, the odds of me losing power to my well are pretty slim, which is good because it was a close thing. That's good. And just paying attention, being ready. So as you're tidying up your yard, what else can you do to make sure that you are ready for the season? Do you have a couple gallons of water in the freezer just in case you need to thaw them out to drink? A couple of cans of food that you could eat, just whatever it is. So, make sure you're ready. Burn some sage. Sage pulls a lot of microbials right out of the air with that smoke. Yeah, did that too. I do that a lot, actually. I burn a lot of sage. I like sage. So, yeah. Anyways, tonight, for the last half hour, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the other types of witches. I tend to consider myself an intuitive witch. And after last weekend, I am doing a little bit of research into chaos magic. It wasn't really something I identified with until I started talking about it last weekend. It's like, wow, there's chaos everywhere. Chaos in my life. Wait. Another one of those journaling moments that were like, oh, I see. So, yeah. Also, just so you guys know, if you have mold sensitivities and you have carved a pumpkin and it is sitting in your house, odds are good it's contributing to your illnesses. We carve pumpkins, and they're very, very cute. And they got soft and moldy really quick. And I've noticed since taking them out of the house, Mini-Me has stopped sniffing as much. So, just one of those things. When you notice something like that happening in your life, make sure you journal it, note it down somewhere. If it's medically related, so you can talk to your doctor. If it's, mood related, maybe you need to, if you have a therapist, you need to talk to your therapist about it. If it's spiritually related, you need to maybe talk to whomever is your spiritual leader, your priest, your priestess, that kind of thing. Sometimes those things that happen, little ahas, You might need a Post-it note on your calendar to talk to somebody about it. And that's okay. So next on the list, number 10, is the Ceremonial Witch. Ceremonial witches have many practices, but ceremonies and rituals are practices that they hold in especially high regard. Ceremonial magic is worked into most of the elements of their practice. They likely work a ritual or ceremony into whatever they're casting or trying to accomplish. Ceremonial witches often call in specific beings and spiritual entities to assist them with whatever they're doing and whatever they're casting. So I do know someone who is a ceremonial witch, and very structured. A leads to B leads to C. And it's interesting to observe and watch, and I think it's great. I'm not ceremonial. I do have some ceremony to my rituals and such, but not to that extreme. I'm kind of it's brunch rather than tea time, kind of relaxed. And it's, spiritual or ceremonial magic, I should say, does draw a little bit different energy. It's a different way of building the energy as you're putting it into your ritual and your ceremony, which I think it's cool. It's cool to participate and be part of it, but it is a little different. I'm an intuitive, not very ceremonial, and so I just pull things as I need it, kind of the same way I cook. But I get it. Some people need that structure, and yeah, the energy from it is every bit as good. It's just a little bit different. So a green witch is number 11, also called garden witches or forest witches. Green witches are highly connected to the earth and the energy that it possesses. They may have their own garden where they grow their own herbs, but they also study their area and practice with local plants in their own environment. Green witches use plants and greenery in their spells and magic, and sometimes in their cooking and in their home. Green witches are often very natural and love to be in nature and near anything green. Plants, trees, flowers, etc. They do this to be as close to Mother Earth and the spirit she encompasses as possible. Often green witches work with Gaia sometimes. You're funny, D. Yes, a steaming sort of ritual. Absolutely. Yeah. Green witches are often confused again with hedge witches because they do share a lot of similarities with, being outside or outside of town or out in the community or out in the wild, and closer to nature. And yeah, a green witch often is your wild crafter. If you have someone who likes to pick up stuff outside and craft with it as they go. They're often really, really connected to the land whites in their area, more so than almost anybody else, just because they are closer to the earth, and the plant life and the animal life in their area. It's just a little bit different relationship, more intimate, if you will, than say the ceremonial witch. The next on the list is often an interesting one. So it's the Hereditary Witch, number 12. So a Hereditary Witch is one that is born into witchcraft. It is a part of their family and or their lineage. Their magic and practices are passed down for previous generations, though they may work with their own individual practices as well or instead of their families. However, there is still choice. Hereditary witches must be born into witchcraft, but if you do not choose to practice witchcraft, you won't still be a hereditary witch. So there is a group of people out there that feel that you are not a witch if you are not a hereditary witch. In doing some research into that, there's a lot of racism associated with hereditary witches. Not necessarily because they are, but because it's something that's been adopted by those who are racist already. It just like there are parts of the conservative community that are adopted by certain racist individuals, and also the liberal community. So it just goes to show that those who have extremist thinking to begin with will steal and adapt all sorts of things from all sorts of places to try to manipulate the people to their way of belief or or their thought process. So if you're getting ready to join a hereditary witch coven, you just want to make sure you're asking the right questions to make sure that the way they practice and what they do is truly in line with you. And you just, pay attention. That's all. Do your research. As I've said repeatedly, do your research. It'll help you be happier in the end. Next is the Cosmic Witch. Cosmic witches are contemporary witches who look to the cosmos, such as astrology and astronomy, and work with those elements and celestial energy into their practice. Also called star witches, these witches will often follow the planets and alignment of the stars and base their spells and rituals on the different placements. There's, I think, a lot of similarities between the Cosmic Witch and the Ceremonial Witch, because there are a lot of steps to making sure that, the planets are here, we're going to do this thing at this time. It's very structured. And I think there's a lot of cosmic energy out in the world. Yes, a lot of it. As an intuitive, do I grasp at it once in a while? Yeah, I do. Is it my calling? No. And just like I've said in the past, do your research. And you may be called to one or more of these different things. And honestly, all they are is labels. They're just a way of identifying and helping you to focus in on what you're trying to research and do. But just like any other label, it doesn't define you. You define the label, not the label defining you. Next on the list is the secular witch. So secular witches cast spells, use crystals, herbs, oils, and candles, but they don't attach spirituality to their practice. Secular witches don't worship a deity or higher being. Their practice is entirely non-religious. They don't believe in the power behind the energy or that there is energy in their work. This isn't to say that a secular witch can't be spiritual, it's just that their work is not. The two are entirely separate. This is part of the reason why witches are not all Wiccan and all Wiccans are not witches. It's because with the secular group, it's more like a spell is more like a cookie recipe, if you will. The goodness or the benefit is in combining the whole. And you don't generally call upon the deities to bake cookies. It just doesn't generally happen. Maybe in your world it does if you're a kitchen witch, but the secular witch keeps the deities out of it. And this is why some people who choose not to work with a deity often wonder if, am I really a witch because I don't work with a deity? Well, yeah, you're a secular witch. That's fine. Don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. You don't have to work with a deity to be a witch. You just don't. Because you're working with energy differently than someone who's religious. Very cool, Justin. And that's all. Just two different things. So the solitary witch is number 15. A solitary witch can be any type of witch, but they choose to practice alone rather than with a coven. This could be by choice or because they haven't found a group to work with yet. There are also legends that solitary witches are reincarnations of witches who have been practicing for generations, and at puberty their knowledge is awakened. Since they already remember and understand the craft, their need for a coven is less than a newer witch. I don't know about that last part. There's legends. Legends are a thing. But the solitary witch is someone who just doesn't fit in with a coven. Maybe you just haven't found your group of people. And that's normal. Or maybe your group of people is online all over the world and you don't have one locally. So that's okay too. You can do both. Technically, I'm part of a couple of groups online because I am trying to keep myself challenged and learning and being able to answer questions when people ask them. And if I don't do that, I have to keep doing my research. But a lot of my stuff I do is more of a solitary. I do have some people locally that I get together with periodically and we'll do rituals and such. But it's more coming together as a community rather than as a coven, which are two very, very different things. So That solitary practitioner. If you're flying solo, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. It is often means that you are self-initiated, and that means that you weren't initiated by a priest or a priestess, and you're following your own path at your own speed. And honestly, journaling is really important here because you know what? Yeah, the things that you keep track of things. Dee says they've often had a bad experience with covens, so work alone. Yeah, very true. I've done some spiritual counseling for folks that have been part of a coven in the past, and the coven was a more cult-like and almost abusive to the individuals rather than being supportive. To me, a coven is supportive of each member. You're there to help each other grow. You're there to be stronger as, both as individuals and as a group. But some covens are not built that way and are not structured that way, and that's really unfortunate. And the ones that are not there to support people tend to cause problems, and people leave, and they tend to become solitary practitioners because they kind of have some trust issues. And I get it. You have to protect yourself. So if you're a solitary practitioner, yes, you are still a witch. Don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I do see a lot of people who are solitary practitioners hanging out on social media, or even here, or reading books or writing books, not because they're lonely necessarily, but because they do miss that camaraderie or that fellowship with someone who believes similarly. And I think that's one of the biggest struggles as a solitary is, well, who am I supposed to talk to about this? This whole thing happened. Who do I talk to? Well, yeah, it's frustrating. So, yes. Dee brings up, she's met a lot of solitaries that say the leader got upset if they didn't want to have sex with them, and to her that is abuse. Yes, that is abuse. Period. There is a huge misunderstanding that, and I don't like it, and I will argue against it every chance I get. Sex should not be part of your rituals. It's not, well, at least it's not part of mine. If it is part of yours, we're going to disagree. But a coven isn't there for sexual relations. A coven is there to support each other spiritually. A lot of people who are part of the LGBTQ community, maybe they're polyamorous, maybe they're bi or gay, whatever, that doesn't necessarily mean they want to share partners all the time. Covens are not swinger groups. They're just not. So, again, this is why you need to ask the questions before you join a coven. Make sure you are, you're where you need to be for your spiritual health, your emotional health, your mental health. If you have questions, like I've said before, ask me. wildepaisley@gmail.com. Send me the email, and I'll do my very, very darndest to help you. Because I don't want you to be in an abusive situation. Period. All right. Number 16 is the last one on the list, an eclectic witch. So an eclectic witch does not have one set religion, practice, tradition, or culture that they pull from. Their practice derives from many sources and ultimately becomes the witch's own. They may worship a higher being, or their practice may be primarily secular, or it might be its own kind of spiritual. An eclectic witch ultimately makes their own rules with their practice and is entirely unique based upon the individual witch. Yes. Eclectic witch could also be considered an intuitive witch. Very, very similar. And this is me. I do some things that are more ritualistic or more structured. I do some things I'm just kind of pulling out of the air and I'm doing the thing. Some of the energy work I do 100% by feel. And by intent, and it's not structured. It's what do I need to accomplish and how am I going to do it? And that to me is important, trying to figure out how I'm going to accomplish it. I don't have an urge to go to a witch school or join a coven to, shuffle through the lines or their initiation process and such. I just don't. If I was 20 years younger, maybe. I don't know. But part of it, as I've matured, I've also learned how to research. I've learned how to learn. And I've learned what fits me as a person, and me as a witch, and me as a spiritual individual. And I would have to unlearn some of those things to join a coven. And it's taken me a while to get okay, and get to the point where I'm okay with me. I don't know that I want to change that right now. Just saying. And that, I think, is huge. You know, you have to get to the place where you feel comfortable being yourself and with who you are and how you are spiritually and who you are spiritually. Now, does my whole family know that I'm a witch? No. Do they need to know? No. Why not? Well, because I'm not that close to them. If I'm not that close to a lot of my family members, why would I share something so personal? Just like, you know, why would I support a business that wouldn't support me? If I go and it's like, hey, I've got this Sabbath coming up, and I go to, you know, a bakery, it's like, hey, I want all these things. They're like, oh, we're Christian, we don't believe in that. It's like, well, that's cool. I still want these things. Is that something you don't feel like doing? And they say, nope, that's just not our gig. We can't support that. It's like, all right, cool. I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to vote with my money. I'm not going to try to make them do something to help with my celebration. I'm going to go find someone who does support my celebration. So just, you know, pay attention to where you're putting your energy. I'm not going to change somebody's mind by trying to force them into it. It's just not. And my spiritual path is not necessarily going to be exactly the same as somebody else's spiritual path, because it's personal. Are we going to have some similarities? Yeah, maybe. Probably. But we're all going to be different. And so, yeah, if you've joined a coven or something and you feel compelled to do things you don't feel comfortable doing, then your coven may not be the right place for you. And that's okay. Your coven, if you look to join one, should have an exit strategy. You should be able to leave. I've talked to people who are cursed for leaving a coven because they moved due to work. It's like, I moved due to work. I can't stay in this coven because you say I have to be at all these meetings. Well, I'm not going to fly across the country to go to these meetings. So make sure the rules are going to fit your lifestyle. So, and remember, you can vote with your money. Put your money where your mouth is. That's a real thing. So if you don't support the business, why would you go there? Just like I don't support Walmart. I don't like Walmart. So I try really, really hard to not go there. I'd rather go almost anywhere else. I will drive an hour to go somewhere else. I'm serious. I don't like Walmart. I just don't like their business practices. Have they gotten better in recent years? Yeah, a little bit. I don't know if it's enough, though. So, yeah. Do your research. Study. If something calls to you, write it down. It's like, hey, does this call to me enough to research it? And talking about last weekend, chaos magic kind of spoke to me. I'm doing some research. I'm learning some stuff. There's a few ahas happening. And that's normal. And journal those ahas because those are important. You'll come back to those. Be like, oh, that's what that meant. Oh, that's what that meant. Great. And you'll learn more about yourself and your spiritual path. Remember, if you're a witch, you don't have to be a religious witch. You can be a secular witch. There are Christian witches. We didn't talk about that today, but they're out there. They're also called pastors. Just saying. But that's my interpretation. Yeah, do your research. Think for yourself. If you join in a coven, make sure it's going to fit you and not try to force you into their paradigm or their structure. It needs to fit like a comfortable pair of socks rather than shoes that are 3 sizes too small. So, that's it for tonight. Holy cow, it's the last Saturday. Well, hey, they say. It is Samhain, so happy Samhain, happy Halloween. I hope you guys have just a great weekend, a safe weekend. very, very safe. And, you know, support your family in what they're trying to do, whatever it is. And just, you know, support your family, whatever it is. We'll just leave it at that. And be the best you can be. So we'll see you next time. Merry meet and merry part and merry meet again. Good night, all.